I initially thought I would study medicine. We're not going to talk about all the other choices that were on the list.
No, we are gonna mention them. One of them was social work. I think also what Malusi wanted to study, which is the
Somatology.
massage, somatology.
You know what?
I think he had a list of about 6 things. So this brother brings this whole conversation to me and we look at it and I'm like, Chief, well, out of the things that are on here, what are we going to study and exactly what direction are we heading? Welcome here to another episode. This is the ParaPodcast show. We are joined by a guest, Paulus Ambunda, based in Namibia. And we also joined by the previous and the usual faces. Malusi Mtetwa, who's in Australia. And we have Thulani Sibanda, who is in Qatar. All right. Today we are blessed by the presence of Paulus Ambunda. This is the gentleman that actually got me into paramedicine for some reason. Bad influence somehow ended up in this field of practice that I never envisioned myself in. But here we are. And 10 years on now, Paulus? And
Yeah, almost. I mean, without
almost.
the studying years.
Yeah. All right. Paulus, just introduce yourself to the audience. Who are you? Where are you? What are you doing? And how did you get yourself to where you are now?
So makes me wonder where I am. But Elias said, my name is Paulus Ambunda, ALS paramedic, based in Namibia. I've just worked in Namibia, unlike Elias and Malusi and Thulani, who have seemed to have been all over, or a little bit all over. EMS, we started studying together with Elias in 2014, yeah? And then I've not looked back since. How I got into this whole thing, I initially thought I would study medicine. We're not going to talk about all the other choices that were on the list.
No, we are going to mention them. I think one of them was social work. I think also what Malusi wanted to study, which is the
Somatology.
massage, somatology.
At least it's not somatology.
And he wanted to do social work. And I think there was something else, Paulus. Radiography was also one of them.
Yeah. Ish, that was
I think he had a list of about 6 things. So this brother brings this whole conversation to me and we look at it and I'm like, Chief, well, out of the things that are on here, what are we going to study and exactly what direction are we heading? But yeah, he ended up being a paramedic either way.
Yeah, so I initially thought I wanted to study medicine. Engineering was somewhere also on the cards, but at the point I did not like math very much. Unlike Elias was a math guy. So engineering, somewhere in my, I think, grade 12th year, I thought with my love for math and the relationship for math, this is not gonna fly. And I thought I must study medicine, which I could have maybe, but I thought at the time that it was boring. And I stumbled across EMC and got into the whole thing, and I've loved it. At some point, I did consider studying medicine, but I could never answer the why question. So hence why we're still here. Yeah, but I think my thinking at the time was also limited because I was thinking of medicine in the sense of the hospital based. We're seeing patients in a consulting room. That was my thought around it at the time versus now. But still, I don't regret choosing what I chose to study.
But paramedicine in Namibia was very limited at the time, where there was not much exposure. How did you get to learn about what paramedicine was? We are not going to discuss what I thought of what it was, but you seem to have a clear idea of what it was. And you had the intention of you're going to submit your application for it. How did you get to know of what it is in a country where it's not really that, I don't know, it's not as prominent as it is in South Africa, for instance?
Man, to be honest, it was through a family friend that I came to know about EMC, and I did a little bit of reading up on the whole thing. And also, I think I had a chance or opportunity to chat to the lady at the time, and then she was also a student at the time. I think she was doing her second year by then. And then I looked at the whole thing. It was kind of in line. Still was with the medical space. One thing for sure I knew is that I could never be a nurse. So that was not an option.
Sister Ambunda.
Agent,
Say.
sister every other day in the hospital.
Say Ambunda.
That's how I came about to EMC. And obviously you never really know what you're getting into until you get into the whole thing, or especially EMC. Because at the time you saw an ambulance drive by and you never really knew the intricate nature of the things until you really started studying and you were exposed to the whole thing. And that's where you actually realized, this is what it is. So yeah, that's a short story into EMS. And then I did my undergrad, which I completed in 2016. 2018, and then around about 2019 I did my honors, and then I just recently finished my MPhil of emergency medicine.
Well done there. Well done.
Congratulations.
Yeah, which is it's
When I'm doing my
Like
PhD.
this.
good progress.
So
It's on the cards though.
We'll see.
Maybe. Okay, let's chat about your experience of studying emergency medical care. I remember Thulani had an issue with anatomy and physiology. Which subjects did you think you struggled with, and how did you find the whole experience? Did you find it? How did you find your study techniques, and what study techniques did you sort of like recruit at the time?
Yeah, I was listening to that podcast and I could not understand. And somebody said everybody struggled with anatomy and physiology. So what studying EMC for me, if I have to be honest, it was not difficult, but it was a lot of work in a very short space of time. So the pressure, that was the thing. And if I can point out maybe one module that was kind of challenging was clinical practice, in the sense of what do we call those things? The portfolios. Phew.
Yeah, jeez,
Yeah,
yeah.
there was a lot of
The
writing.
reflective writing.
Jeez, there was a lot of writing, which at the time it was too much. But now you reflect and you look back and you actually appreciate some of these things because of how it has kind of polished your writing skills. I mean, AI is sort of taking over now, in that you don't need to write as much anymore. But
But back then, we had paperwork. One thing I want to ask, and maybe that's why you say it was a lot. Did you guys leave it for the last minute? Because that's what most
Most of the
people
times,
do.
yes.
Because I didn't
Most
leave it for
of
the
the
last minute.
well, not me. I tried not to. You have to think on top of my. I never did. Maybe there was a few chances or few occurrences where you had to like finish a submission the day before, but it would normally be maybe like one of the last submissions in kind of like a, because it was always clustered around patient simulation reflections. Okay, but that was what once in a while thing, but it was shift reflections. It was case studies. At some point in one submission, you'd have more than one case study to submit. So maybe sometimes there was a night before where you still had to like finish up that submission. I know a lot of guys in the class left it for the last minute.
Elias included.
no, not really, not
Maybe
that
not
much.
so
But
much,
there were
but
some legends.
for some other reason, paramedics seem to function well under pressure, and that's where they thrive. So most of the guys actually left the stuff for last minute, and the stress was just too much for me. I could never do that to myself.
Me and you
Yeah.
both are the
Yeah.
same.
No.
I wouldn't.
Yeah. So I think obviously you went through the course from year 1 to year 3. You didn't repeat any modules pretty much. What do you think was your challenge? What modules or what about the course would you say was challenging for you? And specifically that you studied at Namibia University of Science and Technology, if there was any, or was it just smooth sailing for you? Are you
Not
choosing your
really.
words?
Apart from the pressure in terms of the workload, that was really maybe the challenge. I mean, we can discuss about, or we could talk about, did it really drive learning? I mean, there was a conversation, I think, on the podcast the other day regarding around that. So the only challenging thing was really around, it was just the workload. So it's quite a lot of work in a short space of time that you need to do. That was about it. I think what made it simpler or easier was sort of the team we had formed. That helped a lot because, I mean, when we started studying, it was very team focused and we kind of gelled quite well and became close as a group. And I mean, we used to have study groups. To be honest, in most times, not much studying happened in those. Half of the time we're talking about nonsense.
you talking about what?
Nonsense.
Nonsense.
Nonsense. Okay.
As opposed to studying. But I think that environment helped quite well in the sense that we're able to help each other. And luckily, well, not luckily, but we all passed. So surely it was working.
Something was
Something
being done right.
It's productive.
it felt like we are not studying as much. But yeah, I think the environment that was created helped quite a lot to kind of lighten the burden. Although it was still there, but it was kind of shared. I mean, you still had your individual duties to do and study as a person, but that camaraderie that was there helped quite a lot.
What I want
Okay.
to ask you is, sorry there, Elias, is that, and I don't know if I've shared this story before, just to elaborate a bit, is that obviously from the education system that I was coming from, I feel that as the individual I was disadvantaged because the school that I came from didn't prepare me for university. Like, for example, In high school, when I was doing matric, there was an assignment that I did. It was an English assignment where I copied and pasted the stuff that I got from Google onto that Word document, and I got 100%. And
Feel smart.
you like the
And you
teacher said, I'm
tried
good.
the same trick.
I tried the same trick in university.
It didn't fly.
That's when the first time I heard about plagiarism. I'm like, what? Plagiarism?
So what did they say? 100% plagiarism.
Let's not even talk
Welcome.
about it. But the one question I want to ask you is that, do you think the education system in Namibia is more sticking towards the field that we are in, prepares students for tertiary education, like for you yourself, even Elias? Because I was not prepared for university. The schooling system that I come from never prepared me enough for tertiary.
At the time, no. I like to think they are maybe doing better now, but I can't comment as much. But back then, it's two different systems. It's completely different systems. And then also the one thing is that with the introduction of technology, so in high school, we are not using as much as technology to learn. Maybe also because of the type of school we went to, a government school. I mean, there was a computer lab, so even word processing was not really.
I think the computer was also like optional, was it not? Like you had to choose if you want to. I'm not sure if it was compulsory.
No, but it was just one of those not serious subjects. We have to put it. So I mean, we went to the computer lab sometimes and we played games, And then you rock up in university and there's so much word processing. You have to type. You have to search for literature. So it didn't prepare us, but I like to think it's the type of school and that divide. I think they call it a technology divide. So that was there, but it wasn't too bad that it affected our performance in university, luckily. But the two systems are way different, and it would be nice, I think, if maybe in your grade 12 year you sort of have kind of like some sort of bridging I don't know, subject module that kind of narrows that gap from when you leave matric to university. And also the whole environment that changes in the sense that high school, there's a teacher that kind of really ensures that you do your work, and where you go over to university and you kind of have to do your part. I mean, the lecturers would call you in if they saw a concern, but pretty much you drove the studying and the learning, and there were facilitators. EMC is sort of different because of the way the course was structured at the time, because I mean, people could not understand how we were punished in university. So I think that disciplinary that was there kind of still.
Just maybe elaborate on the punishment that you are referring to, and so that our global audience understand what.
They know that
you're referring to.
EMC students are punished at university in Africa.
No, that sounds so wrong.
Oh, please elaborate on it.
Malusi, they punish you there.
Just give context.
Just give context.
So, I mean, it was kind of a military structure type of thing. I appreciated it. I know Elias has a different opinion. I think now than he had then. So we wore uniform from year one. And randomly there would be uniform inspections, for example. And if the uniform or your uniform or any other classmate was not as it was supposed to be, and the whole group would be punished.
Where is this thing done? Is it done during the classroom or at your dormitories where you lived?
No.
Sometimes it was in the PT yard, sometimes
PT.
And then also if somebody was late, then the whole class would be punished. And the wrong answer to give was always if the lecturer asked who somebody in the class was, and because they're not in class then, and the wrong answer was always to say they're on their way, because then if you say they're on their way and you're like, okay, well, we are waiting for them, then you're either in a plank position or something.
Push-up position.
Plank position.
Plank, yeah. Or push-up position. I think just to narrate, the punishment that Paulus is referring to is usually some form of exercise. You have to do some squats, you have to do push-ups, you have to do some form. But also just perhaps for clarity, I think it's two different systems because he did it from year 1 to year 2, the different system, and then in year 3 the system kind of changed because the staff that were on the board were different, so they were pushing for different agendas.
So if my classmates did that, I'd be highly motivated to give them a high five on the face very fast.
Yeah, but I think what they tried promoting is the unity and the
unity.
togetherness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you
To
make
make sure
sure that you check up on Elias because you know Elias is always late. So you made sure that before you get to class or when you wake up, then you call Elias. Hey, are you awake? Where are you? You know.
Why using me as example?
Yeah. Using
Thank you,
Elias
Elias.
is always late, but he's just being used as an example. So there was one specific one of our friends that was always late. We shall not mention her name. I think if she watches the podcast, she would know
Yeah.
about her.
Wait.
She must come here and tell us why did
She's
she
a legend.
put you guys there.
The aim was to build that unity, which worked, to be honest. And yeah, I appreciated it.
So just to add there, I think for me, I wouldn't say we were punished. Obviously, as students, we feel that we are being punished, but it builds that teamwork, as you said, the teamwork and coordination. But also it adds to the leadership and decision making because if you think about where we are now and where you're coming from, it helps you to function better in a team. But also if you're the team leader, you're able to take those decisions on behalf of your team. So I think it was good that we were being trained to work as a team, and it built that.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah, no. Yeah. I think that's something that we can discuss on another day because I have
And
very
in
strong
that
opinions
way
around this.
we've carried that cohesion till now. Or most of the people.
Well, I can vouch for that. I have.
It's actually true. All right, let's move over to the next section. And here we just want to discuss your career since you finished your degree and got into the field. How was the transition for you? Did you have a mentor? How did you find the transition from school, getting into the field? What challenges did you have?
So I think that's the one aspect we are not doing quite well on the southern end of the continent, as opposed to other programs. I look at like the UK and somewhere where the other guys are, the rest of the guys are. So in the funny thing, I had a battle vest, right? When I qualified. So I bought me a battle vest. And on the back, it has got this huge Velcro patch that you could stick whatever you wanted. So most probably your qualification. But I think for a good 3 or 2 years, I left it open. Because
You're not confident, Chief.
I was not confident. So I was like, I'm not gonna advertise out there that I'm a ALS paramedic, and when I rock up on a scene, everybody looks at me. So maybe after two years, when I was confident enough, then I made a patch that said advanced life support. So in terms of finishing the degree, I think, but that's the two, you are never really, well, you know what you know, but in terms of, I think that confidence that comes with the experience is not there. And in most cases, there is no one to hold your hand. So you sort of, not wing it, but what is the diplomatic word? You just, let's use wing it.
You do what you remember.
Yeah,
but wing it sounds a bit reckless, but not in that sense. So you figure it out as you go. That's much better. So when you qualified operationally and when you start working the clinical setting is way different as opposed to the classroom. So, but the one nice thing I can appreciate is that where I started working, so at the MA fund, there was sort of that culture where paramedics you could call any other senior guy and they would assist you without judgment or say you are incompetent or so. That culture was developed in the fund that you could call one of the ALSs and they would guide you if you needed to be guided. And also I think because of the team cohesion we had coming from university, you're always able to call some of the other colleagues or former classmates that you could discuss a case with, and that helped a lot. As much as there was no formal mentoring programs when you started working, that the community, so at the fund and then that of the classmates, chipped in quite well to discuss cases here and there where you feel you messed up, and just for general discussions in terms of patient care, and also I suppose the mental aspect of things. So
and I guess it's I was just gonna say I guess it's also very difficult for you to to determine if you messed up, if you can't really identify it and there's no one to pinpoint from a third party perspective. But just to give a little bit of perspective, can you just explain to an international audience that is listening to the podcast, what is the EMS system like in Namibia? How does it run? Do you have government? Do you have private?
So you have a two-tier system where you have private and government run ambulance services. Now, the government is sort of the biggest provider, but the government does not have proper structures in place. So until now, so the private ambulance system or ambulance services are quite well equipped generally, and then they've got the qualified personnel, so EMS qualified personnel from basic life support practitioners up to advanced life support practitioners. Whereas the government, only in recent years, they have sort of employed advanced life support practitioners, but there is no formal ALS positions to this date in government.
Wait, do they pay them though? I mean, as they should.
For the few that are there, I know of 3 in the whole of Namibia that I know of that are at government now, but they joined the government service as ECTs. So there's no ALS positions yet. So they are sitting in ECT positions. So they are in fact paid as ECTs. You have that, and to these days, it's slowly changing, but obviously these things, it's always a budgetary thing. So it's slowly changing in the sense that the government is starting to hire more EMS qualified personnel, but it's at a slow pace and it's not really meeting the demand, and the structures are not being formed as they should because of the resource challenge. So the government system to this day still has drivers, where someone is purely a driver and all they do is drive. And in most cases, they are still operating with a nurse. And even where they are, so I'll say ECPs because that's what they call them in Namibia. I know in South Africa, ECPs are the paramedics. But ECPs here, we refer to BLS and ILS. Or let me put an umbrella term. So where you have a medics, they sort of have been pushed into a driver role, whereas they drive and the nurse treats, and there is quite a lot of issues in that. Obviously, nurses are not trained or in pre-hospital care, so you could just understand the gaps that would be in that system. And as opposed to the private ambulance service, where there is no nurses that staffs the ambulances, and you purely have medics operating on the ambulance from BLS up to ALS. And now you sort of have us, where we are public, but we are state owned, and we are the only service in the country that's state owned, because I know Elias has referred or spoken a bit about MBA fund, but it's similar to the road accident fund in SA, only that we do have emergency services. So we operate a national call center, and then the other leg has the emergency response, and we have some bases in few parts of the country, and we are sort of the only ambulance service that's parastatal in the country.
Okay. So you have the private ambulance services, you have a parastatal, and then you have the government. Okay, it's interesting. For those who don't know, Namibia, I think I just googled now, 2.9 million people. So it's a country with a small population. But also, I don't think as an African.
Yeah, I think the recent census says we are over 3 million.
Okay.
3 million.
Yeah. Yeah, this was 2023, so it's 2 years later. I don't think it's fair that you have nurses running the show, yet we have a university that has production of people that are capable and qualified. I wonder if I were to hire you as in the same position for the government, how would you change the whole thing?
How much are you gonna pay me? Is that the question you want to ask?
No, man, we are here to change the system, so money is not a factor.
Like that feast, it's not very high. It just goes a little bit.
It's media.
So yeah, I think that's the sad part, because I think that's why you see there's a lot of brain drain. So the guys are finishing from university, but there isn't jobs around. So most of the guys are finishing and they are going either to the UK, well, mostly the UK.
Elias.
And Elias is to blame for that.
Trailblazer.
Conversation for another day. So, and that's a setback, because the biggest service that's supposed to be absorbing these people, which is government, cannot or does not absorb them. So they are left with no option but to leave. Because I mean, private ambulances are so many, and they are also they can't absorb everyone. So
Okay,
most
but
of the
Chief, if you had that role, what would you do?
So if I had the, I'm still coming to the question. If I had the role, to be honest, I would want the government to be the biggest ambulance service provider. How I would change the system, and I'm sure many nurses would not like me for this, but that would be the first starting point after hiring enough staff.
But the
So,
nurses are not hired on the ambulance, are they? They just hop onto the ambulance when they are required.
well, yeah, they only hop onto the ambulances when required. I mean, they are hired at the state hospitals where the ambulances are, and they sort of complement.
So like, hey, come, we're going.
But it's a system. It's a system. I've realized that it's difficult to change, or people are reluctant to change because there is money attached to it. Because in most cases, when nurses get onto the ambulance, it's sort of overtime. So it brings a lot of conflict even between medics. Now, some hospitals have sort of, I would like some sufficient staff members to run an ambulance service staffed by medics only. But because of the money issue, it becomes a point for contention because now this is overtime for the nurses, and they're sort of forced to do this kind of thing. So, but would need to if I had to change the system, that's where I would really start in terms of staff complements, implementing proper, well, I don't want to say proper, but structures, because to this point, there is no EMS structure in the government. The ambulances fall part of tertiary services, if I'm not mistaken, and there is no EMS directorate on its own, with its own director. And I mean, the country has 14 regions.
Yeah.
Elias, 14?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
14.
it's 14, yeah. Even Malusi
Yeah.
knows this.
So 14 regions, and ideally, and we have big regions. So ideally, each region is supposed to sort of have its maybe deputy director that reports to a national director somewhere. But those structures are not in place. So you either have this ambulance service running under some other directorate, and people that are heading these departments are either not EMS qualified, and to be fair, you'd not expect them to really understand the whole EMS service sort of structures.
Okay.
EMS normally takes just a back end, but there is work in progress. It's just slow. I mean, government stuff takes time to change.
It's been there since I left Namibia. It's been almost 6 years now.
Maybe by the time the structures come in place, the needs has also already shifted that it needs to be changed again. But we are hopeful.
I don't know if you've watched one of the episodes that we did. I think episode 3. It was on. It was related to brain drain, and it was just the three of us, Malusi, myself, and Elias, reflecting on why did we leave the paramedics. And you also mentioned that the medics, they qualify and they leave the country, if I heard you correctly. What I want to ask you is, do you think that similar to what doctors do, that 1 year internship where paramedics serve do their internship just for a year so that they can also contribute to the EMS society in Namibia, could maybe help with the retaining of paramedics there in Namibia?
I doubt it would contribute to that because, well, this is anecdotal, and it would be interesting to do a study.
Sounds
studying
like a
Elias.
research. Elias doesn't like
Yes.
research, but yeah.
No, I do.
The guys that have gone out of the country to actually gauge what was the push factors. I can almost think that it's in most of the conversations I've had, most of the guys did not really want to leave because they did not have proper jobs and job security. That's why they left. So with a 1 year internship thing, I don't think it would assist in keeping the guys in, because I think the primary cause is there's just no jobs. So even if they did a internship as a requirement to register, I mean, to a certain extent, it would sort of solve the staffing issue for a period of time, because now you have these guys that are doing internship. But I could almost be sure that once they did that internship and the situation remained the same, they would still go.
Yeah. How I view this, Paulus, is that the situation that you have in Namibia is you have universities, they are creating professionals, yeah? And the professionals do not have any place to practice their profession. And that's one. Number two, universities also generate knowledge for the profession. But now those two things, they function, which is where you are now. You also do research and stuff like that. So you are participating in the production of knowledge, which is cool. But the professions being absorbed by the industry is something that is very critical. I think there should be that platform where professions are absorbed by the industry and the industry can, like, there's, for me, from where I'm standing, I don't think we even need to do a study that looks at why are people leaving. There's no industry that absorbs them. It's straightforward.
The answer is simple.
Create.
We know the answer.
Yeah, like the government needs to have a system where they say this is a position for advanced life support paramedics from the university. If they produce 30, they should take them, all of them, take 30 of them and employ them. That's it. Well, at least for the next, I'd say 5 years, they are hiring everyone that comes from. Yeah.
I don't know if it's sustainable. Yeah. Well, the government also just cannot be hiring for the sake of hiring all the guys coming out of university. I mean, there needs to be a need that informs that. But surely I agree in the sense that, because I mean, we are going back to a place where we were when the department was formed or created at the university, where the country had no paramedics, and different stakeholders came to the table and saw the need that this is a critical skill we are lacking in the country. So let's create this department to train ALSs for the country. But now the ALS are being trained and they are leaving. So we are sort of getting to a place where there's just not enough ALSs again, because most of the ALSs are just concentrated in kind of urban areas, and like always the rural areas always suffer. So and we're having a discussion the other day in an ACLS course that if you sort of kind of in Namibia, you have to be quite strategic on where you decide to fall ill or get injured. Because surely if you are in some parts of the country, I mean, Namibia is a beautiful country, but if you are in certain parts of the country, it's just so difficult, especially if you have a time-sensitive condition. I mean, take even maybe an MI or stroke. You are sort of doomed, because getting to definitive care just takes long.
Yeah. I was looking, when I was trying to read about Namibia, I was actually looking at that. Okay, if I get sick, I need to aim at least to be around Venhoek, Is it commas?
Commas.
Yeah, like the region.
Yeah.
It's the region, yeah.
So
yes, I need to be around that. But now I know that the sand and the beach is nice, but it's a bit further from everything. So I was looking at the logistics around that. It's a beautiful country, but
It's fine. The coastal fine is fine. If you're in the coastal area, that's fine, because there is quite a lot of like private hospitals and well-run sort of like public hospitals as well. I think they are decent in actual fact. I don't know, for some reason when I speak of the public hospitals in the coast, a little bit of drama comes out, because when you took some thoughts that come to mind. But yeah, no, I cannot.
Along the coast, because if you are further up in the skeleton coast, then you are sort of also doomed. But the major attraction points like Swakop Valfas, you're still fine and safe there. If you go up further north along the coastline, then and something happens to you there, then
yes,
you're in a bit of a predicament.
You see, when I saw the name Skeleton Coast, I was like, oh, why do they call it Skeleton Coast? I know there's a desert in Namibia.
All right, Paulus, we know that you have published few papers. Tell us through what you have published and why did you decide to study what you studied?
Okay, so I've only published one paper.
Yeah.
That was, I think, in 2022, I think, if I remember correctly. So it was an epidemiological study, and I am passionate about epidemiology. So all my studies that I have done have sort of been, well, not so many studies, just 2 so far, but they've all been in the epidemiology space. So I at the time I was working in Oswarongo, which is around about 2.5 hours north of Windhoek, where I was working operationally, and TBIs. I like treating TBIs. So I was, and also talking about the definitive care and the time it takes to get to definitive care. So that was one that motivated that TBI study, because I was seeing so many TBI patients, and I thought, what would the difference in outcomes be between the patients that got injured in comas, so that's closer to definitive care, versus the patients in Ocho Njupa region that are much further from definitive care. So that was one of the motivations of the study.
And you had a hypothesis, I saw.
Yeah, I thought that patients in comas would do better,
Have a better outcome.
but apparently not. Apparently not. There wasn't any significant differences, but also
Yeah,
also
just
it was
highlight your
a
study
small
population
population of
as well.
patients. It was a small population, so the power it might have had wouldn't be that great, but it sort of painted a picture. And yeah, so, and continuing on why I chose to study what I studied, now are you referring to, oh wait, you're referring to the research?
Yeah, to the research, yeah. And I'm
Okay.
also just thinking, I think just a question on that as well is that why do you think the finding was that, if you were to be injured in the Tanjuba region compared to Windhoek or Comas, there was no difference? Why is that? I mean, you'd think that if you're in the capital, you're much nearer to the hospital and MA fund will be within you. What's your response times to Windhoek? Like what, 5-10 minutes?
Well, urban less than 15.
Okay. Yeah. So why would there not be a difference compared to sometimes when which is the Juba region, sometimes you are rural. You could be 30 minutes away from the hospital or like an hour, 2 hours even sometimes. That's if you're even found, because Namibia is quite scarcely populated. People are all spread out. So you might not find you until like maybe 6 hours later. So why was there no difference? Do you
6
think?
hours later.
No, in all honesty though.
Elias, I can't really say why. I mean, I can only speculate and sort of think of reasons why. I mean, it was not part of the study, or we not identify in the study why there were those findings, and it's quite odd. But there is a paper that says so it had to do probably with significant compounding injuries. That's one thing, that there would be an outcome in difference, because the one paper actually said that the outcome of TBI patients is not really dependent on the compounding injuries, but more the TBIs, or the primary injury, or the isolated injury. So that could be the reason why other injuries, well, I can't say that patients in Otsodo and Chupa are getting better care. So there's a whole factor that we didn't account for, and I can't really say why there were those differences. It would be interesting to do another study, more research, that Elias does not like.
Okay. No. I do like research. I think it answers questions that we are unable to answer.
I have a question
You
there.
just don't want to do it.
He's gonna do it. He doesn't have a choice.
Coming.
He doesn't with us.
Influenced him. Yeah.
So the title of the study says severe. To those who are interested, it's published. I think there's a link from Science Direct, African Journal of Emergency Medicine, and the title is called "Severe Traumatic Brain Injuries Secondary to Motor Vehicle Crashes in Two Namibian Regions: A Retrospective Review." That's what he called his study. So when I read, were you already a manager when you were doing this study?
Oh no, I was still operational.
Okay, so you had no interest in management. I was assuming that you were a manager. The way you used numbers, like you had dollars, this is how much it costed, this, you focused much on the money. I noticed that. Like there's a whole lot of that I see.
So I was still operational when I did the study. I only got into this role last year, beginning of the year.
So
but I was pretty much still operational. So
you went.
I mean, you see the crashes and you see the people injured, and you kind of see how much is spent on the patients. I mean, looking at the socio-economic factors on the country in itself, on the families, one could imagine. So I just wanted to gauge that, how much is actually costing, or that group of patients, and it's quite significant. For the number of patients that there were, I think there were 87.
Yeah.
And the amount that was spent, mind you, those are only the medical costs. So that was just the cost involved in directly treating the patient. So it's quite a significant number, and it was over a short period of time, and the money that was spent. So if you actually maybe took the greater cost of all the costs that is involved in treating these patients, and you think what it could do in the rest of the country, that could be a different conversation.
So from my side, sorry, I think the paper it's a nice study. and I always say this, it's well written and it's easy to read. And you highlighted something on the paper that a death in a traumatic brain injury is defined after someone has died 30 days, occurring immediately or within 30 days as a result of the road crash, which I found it interesting. While I was reading that, Google looks at what you're Googling. Funny enough, there was a YouTuber called Andrew Cross. I don't know if you guys heard about him. He died 30 days after the traumatic road accident crash. But what I want to ask you, and it's something that you mentioned in your paper, you mentioned that I think by the year of 2050, there will be an increase in the traumatic brain injuries. And also you said that, but in the Southern Africa, it's going to be lowest. I'm not sure if it's a type or. What I want to ask is that why would there be, do you think there would be an increase in road crashes, whereas there is an improvement in emergency medical services in terms of the care that we're providing to these patients?
Yeah, so generally, globally, the burden is, well, maybe in the developed country, the burden is coming down because of the emergency care systems that have been developed in those countries. Now, if you look at Africa, we are sort of still going through that process where, well, roads are improving. We have good roads in Namibia, one of the best roads networks in Africa. So, and generally in Africa, roads are improving. The incomes are changing, so people are now able to afford cars, and so there's a whole lot of increase in the number of cars that are registered. So with that, coupled with some of the lack of so that increase in traffic volumes, obviously there is some sort of increase in road crashes. So that's why the road crashes are increasing sort of in Africa. But now with our underdeveloped emergency care systems, that is not helping reduce the burden as opposed to the developed countries. So that's why we are there in terms and yeah, and the outcomes are generally, well, I don't want to say better, but you have a reduced morbidity, let's say in the developed countries as opposed to African states. And also our laws don't help us much in terms of reducing these burdens. And so I think there has been several calls to enforce stricter laws, traffic laws, because I mean, if you look at the helmet use in African states, Namibia is quite strict with it. But you see, like in other countries, using helmets is not a thing.
Yeah.
So,
But
and
it's not only in Africa. It's I think even here in New Zealand, especially in the rural aspects of it. Yeah, you
yeah,
find them there on the motorbikes, just going, just going. All right. Just because of time, I think we'll probably have to round off a little bit. Just tell us in terms of you published one paper, and what's the future? Or are you planning to publish again? That's the first question. And I think just in terms of what you have published, how has that shaped and sort of like informed the general public and the policies at the fund or where you're currently working, or just in general as a country as a whole?
so in terms, I mean, there's no point in doing, well, apart from if you're doing research to just maybe institutional to guide like policies and decisions. I think there's value in letting other people see your work and share the knowledge and your findings. Now, yeah, I published one paper. I had planned on publishing my master's study. Now, that one was also an epidemiological study. So what we did there is we took a month period in 2022, season, December, and we looked at the crashes that happened. So we're looking at injuries, we're looking at crash locations. So we did a geospatial analysis part. So the aim was to publish that, but because of the limited data, we decided, I actually submitted the other proposal today, this morning. So we want to extend that study to a year period. So we do the same study just over a year period, so we have more data and more power to draw inferences from the results. But interestingly, what we saw is the crash clusters, in the country at that point. And now this can really help guide in terms of healthcare planning. Where should we be focused then in maybe developing ambulance, not developing, but opening ambulance stations as a country? And also looking at the injuries, then you could use that because I mean there is trends to these things. you could use them to sort of see what type of medical professionals you need or specialists thereof. Because I mean, if let's say you have a lot of TBIs in Erongo, that
Okay.
most likely would be more able to hire neurosurgeons in that area, or open ICUs. So that's why
All right, Thulani and Malusi, yeah.
This is a very controversial question, and I'm just curious. And obviously, this is me reflecting what's happening in SA. Just a quick one. In terms of the road accident, or in SA, you refer to as the road accident fund, as you said earlier. If someone gets involved as a patient, do they get money from the NVA to compensate them for their injuries? Because I see in SA, well, the system has been there for years and years and it's continuing to exist. And you get to see that there's a lot of corruption in terms of the lawyers taking money on behalf of the beneficiaries and people often throwing themselves in front of the car so that they can claim from the road accident fund. Do you have the similar type of setup, or it's just for dedicated to patient care and transportation? Or do those particular patients actually get compensated for? Not compensated is the wrong word, but I can't think of a better word.
Right word.
It's a correct word.
Yeah,
The correct word.
You're on the money, sir.
So yeah,
Literally.
Namibia also does compensate people injured.
yeah.
So just for getting injured, you get an injury grant. But what we do also, we have the medical aspect where patients are treated and the company pays for that. As opposed to SA, where SA still has a fault-based system where you need a lawyer to claim on your behalf. And I think that's where they are sitting in deep waters. So in Namibia, you don't need a lawyer to claim from the fund.
And the reason why they don't is because of the structure that's in place, isn't it? Maybe, I'm not sure if this is too much information, but there's quite a detailed structure because you get like a person coordinated to your case and so forth as well.
So I think
make sure that they are aware of.
You need a lawyer Elias, to claim, but we've moved away from that. So you don't need a lawyer to claim from the fund.
Yeah. I think Thulani, and I know this is public information, but I'm not sure if Paulus want to touch on this, but you get what you call like a case coordinator. So they coordinate your treatment from the time that you're involved in the accident. They keep a file for you. So there's quite a progress of where you are, what you're doing, are you in physio? How can we make sure that you return back to work in a productive and make sure that you get back to being productive again? Because they're supposed to help you throughout that whole process until you are back to work.
I think one of the things that he highlighted on the paper was that these traumatic brain injury are socio-economic burden. So I think by doing that, you're trying to decrease the socio-economic burdens to the country. But yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah. Malusi, did you have any other question before we close
I
off?
actually had a comment, just quickly Googled here, the fatalities on the road. I think your study is very significant, very important, and it can contribute to the wealth of knowledge that we have in EMS in Africa. So I was looking at Australia. Australia in 2022, they recorded 1,194 fatalities, so deaths on the road. And then South Africa in the same year, they recorded 12,436 fatalities on the road in the same year. Fortunately, Namibia doesn't have something that pops up quickly, but they say normally there's around 6,000 to 7,000, so 600 to 700 deaths a year. So there's a lot that is happening in the space. A lot of fatalities are happening, but also it's males. I think I saw in your study that males between the age of 20 and 40, they are an issue. And I actually wrote the notes from your study that was saying that it's driving issue and using drugs, illicit substances, and driving under the influence. Mainly are those issues. It's something that we need to really change because it's causing deaths. And death of one person actually affects a family and generations too. It's things that we have to do and just change as people. Yeah.
I think we spoke about it.
So, if you could just go on MV Fund's website, you should be able to get most of the data there. Also from the annual report, crash reports. But yeah, I mean, I think that's why generally, if you're a guy, you pay more. Even I think at a certain age, you pay more for insurance because I mean, we're just reckless apparently.
The numbers show it.
Yeah, the numbers speak for themselves. All right,
guys. It says 423 lost their lives in road crashes in 2023, Namibia.
I'll probably think it's higher than that, but
that's from the MV Fund's website.
It's a World Health Organization.
No.
Don't
Yeah,
believe
just go on MV Fund, search for MV Fund Namibia and go on the website there.
We'll leave it for later.
Yeah, now we'll add that as surplus to the podcast. Otherwise, Master Ambunda, we appreciate your time. We appreciate you coming onto the show. Our aim is to bridge EMS globally, to inform, to educate, and to shape, hopefully, influence the space. And if people want to see your research, how can they find it? And if they want to read it for themselves, is it publicly available, or how can
Which
they
one?
find it? The one that you published.
Yeah. So it's published in the African Journal of Emergency Medicine.
Okay.
So yeah, one could just go over there and search the title, Severe Traumatic Brain Injuries in 2 Namibian regions. Or if you could Google search my name, then it should pop up somewhere also.
Hey, that feels good. If you Google my name,
Yeah, it's
Google my
Googleable.
name, yeah.
It's Googleable.
All right.
Oh, that one
Thank you very
also
much.
often.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Master Ambunda. We really appreciate everything else, and we appreciate your contribution to the EMS world, especially in Namibia. You know, we know that most people have left the country, but you've decided to stay. Hopefully, you are making an improvement, and hopefully, you are contributing to the growth and shaping the EMS within.
Fix it.
within
He'll
the
come
country.
back. Fix your country. He'll come back.
Yeah, but otherwise, thank you to our listeners and everyone else that watches us and that follows us. We appreciate you. Please don't forget to hit subscribing. If you like the content, please give us a like, share it with your colleagues, share it with your friends, and we appreciate it. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you.
Signing off. Thank you. Bye.
thank you. Bye.
Thank you.